I've been a full-time pastor for 23 years now. It's crazy. Tomorrow, wife and I celebrate our 24th wedding anniversary, which is good, exciting. It's interesting because this year I was 24 when we got married, so I will be married as long as I was single. I hit that thing. Not Jalen, she's a couple years older than me. She's got a couple more years until that milestone hits, but it's interesting. In 23 years, I don't believe I've ever done what I'm going to do today. And I woke up at 5 a.m. today with a dream. A lot of people dream. You remember things, vivid details. You get up, you can explain them. I know I dream sometimes, and I remember them in the moment, but I couldn't ever tell you details of dreams. Even since I was a kid, it doesn't happen. I know God speaks to us in dreams and visions sometimes. He did it in the Old Testament. He's never really spoken to me that way until 5 a.m. this morning. Because I woke up at 5 and I was like, what's going on? So I'll try to do my best to explain it because it's always vivid in our heads, and you explain it to people and they're like, what are you talking about? Hopefully the Holy Spirit does some interpreting here for me. It was a Sunday morning and we were coming in. I don't know if there was a storm or whatever, but it was a church that looked very similar to ours. The only big difference was there was a altar rail that was like a kneeling rail or something that went around the front. But only a couple people showed up. And so nothing was working. We didn't have musicians. We didn't have, it was just crazy. And so we took circles over in this corner. Sorry, I'm pointing at you guys, but this is where it happened. And a few of us were sitting here trying to have service. I knew, this is the year, this is the time every year I do what I call the State of the Church address. It's probably, nope, it's not behind me. That's fine. You don't have to put it up there. You can leave it. Just say CrossWay. I don't care today. Usually I do this, and I was getting ready to speak, and I didn't have my iPad. It was like my computer, and I'm like, I need my iPad, and I was telling someone to do it, and everything was going crazy. And then a little bit later, more people started to show up, but it was weird. It was like we were singing a song, but the tempo was kind of off, and somebody came up. I don't remember who it was, and they were trying to play the drums or the stick to click, and I'm like, who asked you to even go up there? And then there's this, and there's kids running crazy in the foyer, and it was just this complete chaos moment. I couldn't get my thoughts together. I was trying to preach. Nothing was coming out right. There was chaos. I remember, I wasn't even going to say it, Mountain was sitting here. I don't know why I remember Mountain. Maybe it's just because he's a big guy. He was sitting here in this dream, and there was other music playing, and he was like, why are we playing that kind of music in church? And it was just it was absolute chaos in this dream, and I woke up. And right before I woke up, I found myself, and I came back, and I was sitting on the altar, and I was like, this is insane. What is happening? And I prepared what I thought I was going to preach today. And then God on my phone gave me 6 things. I didn't even bring my iPad down because I don't want to try to go back to what I was writing. We came to church today and it was chaos. There's miscommunications with Isaac, who plays drums for us all the time, graciously. Amazing dude. He's sick. Supposed to be here, got something confused, thought he switched with somebody. That person's not even in this state right now that he switched with. Just crazy chaos going on. So we're trying to play songs, but you pick songs, and then you're like, well, if we're going to do it this way, so we're changing songs and trying to figure out. And there's a lot that goes into worship when we practice, and you guys might not know it. We play this little metronome in our ears all the time that keeps us on tempo most of the time. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you guys hear it because we have to play it so loud to keep us in tune. It was just chaotic this morning. Susan comes in sick. She's planning on singing some things. If you know when you're sick, sometimes your voice doesn't hit notes that you're supposed to hit. And I was like, what is going on? And then just hearing some things that are happening in people's lives, getting emails and text messages before people, because we have a meeting coming on afterwards. It's like chaos. I'm like, God, what are you saying to us? So I want to sit here today with you as your pastor and have a couple thoughts, and God was showing me something. I want to talk about where I feel like God's taken us as a church. I believe it was March of 2019, we kicked off a 5-year plan. We called it a huddle back then. We did a huddle. I remember it distinctly because I just saw you. It was Heather and me and Pastor Dave, not Smith, but that was on staff with us, our discipleship pastor at the time, Pastor Joel. The 4 of us kind of presented this 5-year plan. We wanted 3 healthy church campuses, plants that have happened through CrossWay. We wanted to be out of debt. We wanted to be properly staffed. We wanted a discipleship program. These were our goals. And the last one was we wanted a culture of inviting and pointing people to Jesus. Some of this I lay out in my report later. That's at local church conference. I won't say it verbatim. That was 2019. So the church year starts May 1st, 2019, and we're excited. I remember that Sunday. I have it here. This one's set in my office. I have another one that's on my keys, but I don't usually keep things in my pocket. We gave everybody a gear that, I don't know, some of you might have them still. Some of you weren't even here at church in 2019 because you're new to us. We gave a gear. And my other key ring, I have it still that I carry every day, a gear, just symbolizing that all of us have a job to do. And when you remove one gear from a lot of them, it might still work and function, but usually it doesn't function properly when we all have our gears. We did that. Things were kicking, things were rolling. End of 2019, I got really sick. Spent 7 days in the hospital, was diagnosed with Crohn's. Hit it for about a month before I remember the Sunday we finally went to the hospital. I was crawling to the bathroom, Pastor Joel was on staff, and he's like, dude, you got to preach. I can't. Sorry. Sent him my outline. We're in a series called Wisdom, and he was preaching on breaking addictions. And people were writing things that were addictive in their lives and breaking tiles, and the Spirit of God moved so mightily in the service. It was amazing. Which God showed me that church isn't dependent on me. He's going to do what he wants to do when he wants to do it. We just get to be along for the ride. Started to get better. In February of that year, I had to let 2 staff members go, and it was tough. It was a rough time. And COVID hit right shortly after. You guys remember that? March 2020. 5-year plan, man. We're going to do all this, and then something happened in 2022, and I want to make some statements. I don't blame anybody today. And so I don't want you to feel that, but I got to share parts of the story. In 2022, I was so burnt out. I don't do emotions well. Give me a second. I was done. I didn't want to be a pastor. I didn't want to be in church. I was done. I think the thing that hurt some of the most was I would have staff, I would have people on our board, I would have church members. They would come and they would say, man, you're burnt out. I'm like, I know. And then they'd walk right out the door. I preach a lot on seasons, and I believe we go through seasons in our life, spring, summer. Going on a sabbatical this summer. I'm hoping to write some of these thoughts that have been here for years. But man, I was in winter. Tumnus, I think, told, what was the youngest girl in Lion Witch in the Wardrobe? Lucy. It was beautiful winter, and she was saying it was pretty, and he's like, yeah, it's always winter, never Christmas. That's what I felt. Yeah, you got to pastor, right? You got to be up front. You got to put a smile on. You got to help other people dig out of the trenches. You got to keep moving. You got to keep shaking. Your family needs you. My kids were struggling with some depression and some of that stuff. So, man, Dad has to keep going. And it just seems like God's telling me to do stuff, and everything was a fight. I felt like God was telling our church to do this, and we'd start to implement it, and then it was a fight. Through COVID, everything was a fight. Man, you couldn't please anybody. You guys know that. No matter where you landed on the COVID scale, I think I said that a bazillion times. There was no pleasing. It was just a fight. And if I'm being real with you, church just sucked. I hated it. Absolutely hated it. I tried some different things. I tried to be kind of bivocational for a minute. That happened, and then all kinds of craziness happened because there wasn't leadership here. There wasn't the shepherd that's supposed to be here. We had to deal through some of that. It's interesting because one of our 5 goals is that we'd be properly staffed. When we started in May of 2020, nobody is on staff that was on staff back then. Had no idea what God was doing. Susan came on staff in 2020, which was after that, a year after we started that. Heather and Jeff were leading our worship, but God was calling them into something different. We let some of our other staff members go because change was needed. So I have this dream last night, and I woke up anxious because it was just chaotic again. And I was like, God, I don't want this again. And then we come into service today, and it's chaotic again. And I'm like, God, please no. I still do have PTSD, I guess. I don't want to take lightly for other people. When you have to make a hard decision that you know is going to upset people here in the church, something inside of me turns to this day because of COVID. Not because of what COVID did, because you had to make hard decisions during COVID, and it just, hey, so if we have to cancel something because of weather, or you're making a decision, like, it physically almost makes me sick to this day because I know it's going to make someone mad. But our God's faithful. I'm not saying I'm Moses, because if you've heard me preach, I don't want to say that. But I woke up this morning thinking of Moses, and I was like, I know what he felt like. With learning disabilities and everything else in my life, I'm not your typical be up in front speaking person. Oh, you guys know that. Can't pronounce probably a third of what the names are in the Bible, but some of you can't either, so that's not all of it. God, I don't speak very well. What are you going to do? Just go. And then Moses goes and does this amazing stuff, and they start wandering in the desert, and what was supposed to take probably a couple months took 40 years. And I think about it like these people Moses is trying to lead, and they're just complaining. I'm not putting this on you guys. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody has a direction they think we should be going. Everybody has something going on, and Moses is dealing with it. I don't blame him for striking the rock, because out of frustration, probably most of us in that same situation would have done the same. He probably had to be burnt out. He wanted to go get away to be with God, and he goes on the mountain to be with God, and he comes back to chaos. He's like, come on. This was the hardest year I had in writing not only our church report. I'm not resigning in case anyone thinks I'm going that way, so take a breath. I just wanted to share my heart with you guys. I had a hard time writing my report because I look at our 5-year goal and I'm like, are we a failure at this? Like, did we fail our goals? We hit some of it, and it's there. You can read it later. Like, God, what are you doing? What are we supposed to be doing? I went to write my message, and I had something completely different planned. I felt like God just said I needed to share my heart with you guys. We talk about family. I believe we're a family. Last year we talked about we do life together better in circles than we do rows. I don't want to be here to entertain you. I want to be here to inspire you guys. I want to be here to lead you guys. I believe there's a purpose that God appoints people to lead his church. I'm not saying I'm always going to get it right. But I guess what I'm saying is that we need to do it together. At some point, we have to buy into what God is doing. At some point, we have to take a step of faith. At some point, we have to quit complaining about going back to Egypt, or complaining about the food that we have to eat, or complaining about what God is providing us. And it's time for us to step and move into what God has promised us. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be seasons of winter. I can't imagine going through the time where they had the venomous snakes. We skipped that in the journey, and the snakes are like biting the people, and they're having to look at the statue, and like I'd have been out. I'm like, God, take me home. There's snakes. I'm done. Moses led his people through that. There's going to be times that we don't always agree. God showed me something in the 5 years of what has happened. There's a culture that's being developed here of people that really want to make a difference for God in their lives, in their families. There's big terms we can call it, and church terms that we can call it, and I love some of those terms, but there's people choosing to be all in. Pastor Susan last week preached about David and this idea of, are you all in? That was one of my tattoos. We can discuss later whether you think those are biblical or not, but that's fine. But it says all in until I'm all out. Like everything I have, I want to give until I have nothing left to give. Being a husband, being a dad, being a pastor, being a friend. In March of 2020, I remember our board meeting because we were deciding what to do with this thing that was popping up around the world. We changed our mission statement that board meeting. We changed it from helping people make life work, which I'm not dogging any of the past. I struggled with that one because I think you can help people in life, but if you don't point them to Jesus, for what have you helped them? And so we changed it to help people find, follow, and be transformed by Jesus. Help people be introduced to Jesus. Help people make the decision to follow Jesus. And then have people transformed by Jesus. It saddens me sometimes that Judas had the same opportunity Peter had. Walked the same road that Peter did. Had the same teacher that Peter did. Judas and Peter heard the same messages. We're there for the Sermon on the Mount. We're there for the feeding of the 5,000. We're there for walking on water. We're there when they landed and casted out demons. And we're there for all of this stuff. They had the same teacher, yet one chose to not put his faith and be transformed by Jesus. Here's my point in all of this, I think. I'm sorry if you think I'm just rambling. As a church, we need each other. There's this idea of living together. And we need each other more than just an hour on Sunday. Once or twice a month. I'm not blaming you in this. Some of you were here during 2022 and had no idea that I was broken and hurt. If I ever needed a church, that was the time I needed a church. And I know there's others today that are broken and hurt, but you have to, some of it's my fault. You got to be open and vulnerable. Some of it, though, you got to be present. We need each other. I've pastored, like I said, 23 years full time. This is the hardest area I've ever pastored in my entire life. Pastored in Michigan, pastored in Michigan, North Carolina. Grew up in Ohio and Indiana, going to church. Went to school out in Oklahoma. Did ministry out there for a little bit. This is a tough area. It's tough. I'm not dogging it. Love it here. We need each other. So if I have one thing that I would say for each of you is this next year, this word together, we need to be together. We need to be involved. We need to be soaking in each other and helping out, being a part of it. In my dream, it saddened me that all these people were coming to church, but we couldn't get anyone to help. And I'm not here to beat you up. But a church should be the last place that we're struggling to find people to serve with our children, to invest in them. The church should be the last place that we can't find greeters or ushers, or people have limitations to say, well, I'll do this, but I'm not going to do that. We need to be together. This is our family. We need to buy in. because of where we live, we need to be deployed. God strategically placed us where we are for a reason. In our jobs, in our families, in our neighborhoods. Where we go to school. Where we buy our coffee every day. Can't tithe regularly, but you can buy a Starbucks regularly. Sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I want to celebrate those things together when we have conversations. Who are we talking to Jesus about? Who are we letting know? Who are we helping? We have friends, we have family, we have neighbors, we have school people that we go to that are hopeless, that are dying, that are desperate. And we know who brings hope. We know who brings strength. We know who brings peace. And yet we remain silent. Who are we having Jesus conversations with? I want to celebrate those as a church. One of the things I love to do is build. And you might have saw them up there. These things that say live, learn, work, and play. It's easy to manage togetherness because if we're full in here, we're doing something right in here. If we're not having holes in children's ministry and all these other things that we're trying to do and the budget's good, we get together. Those are visible, tangible signs. We don't always see how we're doing once we leave this place. And so I challenge you to be together, but I also challenge you to be deployed this year. And I want to celebrate it. So every Sunday we'll have, there's actually a tote, not a tote. Sorry, you're going to have to switch camera angles, Jen. I'll come up here because then I think you can see. But there's, I think, 48 on each ones. And each week I want us, if you've had a Jesus conversation with someone, you haven't had to lead them to Christ, I want us to screw in a light bulb. I don't care where it goes. My OCD says please do it in a pattern, but if you're not OCD, if you're putting them in, I don't care. Put it in wherever you want. But I want to fill it up. And I want us each week as a church to be like, man, we had 3 more this week. But I also know the reality, there's going to be some Sundays where like, we didn't have any. The Bible talks a lot about gathering together, being as one, being the church. Jesus talks a lot about going. We're not asking you to go overseas and live in a hut. Maybe God will call you to do that, and if he does, that's amazing. But we can go where we live, where we learn, where we work, where we play. We can talk about the guy that's changed our life. More than ever, the church needs you guys. More than ever, I need you. And I want to be a part of a church that's doing something, not just gathering, which is important, but changing the world. I toy with the idea all the time of getting shirts that say, the church behind Sonic. Because usually when people say, well, where do you go to church? We're like, CrossWay. Well, where's that out? Oh, it's the church behind Sonic. And they're like, oh, yeah. So I was like, we just should get shirts that say the church behind Sonic. But then Susan said something this morning. Wouldn't it be better if this place was glowing so much that the people didn't even realize there was a Sonic on the corner because there's a church on the corner? That's what I want to see. That's what I want to be a part of. That's what I want to do. And that's what I challenge you guys to join me with this year, and maybe many more years to move forward. And if not, I don't want to be like Moses standing on the corner of the mountain looking at what have could been, but not ever getting to step foot in. I want to be like Joshua taking the promised land. Let's go. Let me pray. Father God, thank you for this day. I thank you for your church. I thank you that you allow me to shepherd your church. And God, I know I don't always get everything right. But God, I want to honor you with what you're calling me to do and how to lead. God, I want to move us forward. God, I want people to have such a strong love for you that there's no place they would rather be but in your presence and with your people. But such a desire, too, that, God, they know that they have a mission, and that mission is to live a deployed life and to share you with other people. And, God, it's just having a conversation. We can talk about the Phillies, and I love talking about the Phillies right now. The Phillies won't get anyone to heaven. We can talk about an election and a president, or who's going to be president, or what's going on. Ain't none of that getting us to heaven. God, let us be present in people's lives enough to point them to you. Let us help people find, follow, and be transformed by you. Let us have Jesus conversations in our day-to-day, and let us celebrate those as we're deployed, where we live, learn, work, and play. And God, let us do this together as your body and your church. That's the church I want to be a part of. God, we love you and thank you and praise you. When it's all said and done, we give you all the honor and glory because you're the only one that deserves it. It's in your name we pray these things.